Hi everyone, Byron Martin here at Logis. It's springtime and one of our most reliable bloomers is our Clerodendrum thompsoni, or our glory bower, also called bleeding hearts. And this is an old-time container plant and house plant. This plant here is actually about 40 years old, and every spring it comes into its glory, and there's a trick to actually making it do that. Now, it's a plant that will actually flower from spring all the way through summer, but at this time of year, it really puts on a show where every sprout that comes out has a bloom at the end of it. And you can see there's a calyx, and then there's a bright red flower that forms inside of it. The blooms last for actually quite a while. Many weeks these calyxes will hold on. We'll actually get at least 2 months out of this one bloom cycle, and then as I mentioned, summer will be the little dribs and drabs. So in growing this, the trick is to really stress it in the wintertime. And by doing that, we want to stop or discontinue watering, put it into a really bad wilt, let the leaves yellow and fall off. Looking back, probably 2 months ago, 3 months ago, there was hardly a leaf on this plant. And then you'll see as the days start to increase, there's this beginning of growth that'll start, and that's the time to start watering and feeding it and training it, because it does like to wander a little bit. And out will come blooms. On every tip, out will come blooms from that plant. In terms of its culture, we want to fertilize it heavily during the active growing season, and it's important to really feed it a lot, particularly in the summertime going into fall. You can prune it anytime it gets out of hand, but also the pruning cycle would be late summer going into fall, when there's all this growth that you've got to deal with. You trim that back, and that's not going to hurt the flowering, because every little bud on that, when it shoots out in the springtime, no matter where it is on the stem, will create your flowers. So this plant is in the Lamiaceae family, which has a lot of genera that are very prone to insects, and this is no exception. So it can get spider mite, which you really don't have to worry about when you're moving it in, because you're going to drop all the foliage anyway. It can get whiteflies, you need to watch for that. It can have aphids that get on the new soft growth as it emerges in the springtime, but obviously if you're in a home and you don't have aphids, you don't have to worry about that. We never worry about root rot on it, losing the root system. It's strong and it's vigorous and has a lot of vitality to it. So in terms of containers, as I mentioned, this is a very old plant. It goes back about 40 years. It's been repotted once during that time, got moved up into this larger black nursery container, and it was probably 3 or 4 inches smaller than that for many years. But you can actually leave it in its own pot for many, many years and simply manage it with your pruning shears. And again, as I mentioned, it's a good time to do that is in late summer going into fall, when the growth is slowing down and you're going to bring it into that resting period. It's also a plant that really likes sun, although the greenhouses here have a lot of diffusion and clutter in the way that's slowing it down. So it does make a good windowsill plant or a house plant, but the more sun the better in terms of its growing and flowering. So when we're looking for flowering plants for the springtime going into summer, what comes to mind is the Clerodendrum. And this is a reliable bloomer that will go over many weeks and even months in its glory, and can be put outside in the summertime where it can still thrive and flower. And yet you can bring it inside and neglect it during the wintertime, which makes life easy in terms of those that are gardening indoors, and their cycle goes back into flower again. If you'd like more information, visit us at logis.com.